I'm here in Medjugorje and I'm with, what's your name?
Roger Foster.
Where are you from, Roger?
I'm from Scotland.
How often have you been in Medjugorje?
I've been in Medjugorje 75 times.
75 times?
Yes.
When did you hear the first time about Medjugorje and what did you think at the time?
We heard about it in Scotland in 1990, the end of 1990. There was an article in the local paper saying that Our Lady was appearing to 6 visionaries over here in the Yugoslavia as it was then, and a lot of people, especially the Catholics, were coming over. Obviously, financially we couldn't come, so I phoned the paper, got in touch with the person that was putting the adverts in, and it turned out to be Callum McFarlane Barrow of Mary's Meals up in Oban. His son started Mary's Meals, and I phoned Callum, and he said there was a video show and a talk, but it was November time, and getting out was difficult because it was cold and I think it was beginning to snow. And he said, "Don't go to the talk." He said, "I'll send you a video." So he sent us an old Betamax video, and we watched it, and it showed you the visionaries in the town and Our Lady appearing to them, and we thought, well, that's very nice. Stuck it in a drawer. Then we went to our local church, as we did, and they were praying the rosary, and my wife said to them, "That's a beautiful way you're saying the rosary." They said, "Well, that's the way Our Lady has asked for in Medjugorje." So my wife said, "Where's Medjugorje?" They said, "It's in Yugoslavia." And they said, "We're going on pilgrimage if you would like to come." And got a long story short, they actually convinced her to come, you know. So she was going to come with Julie, my daughter, and she asked me if I wanted to come, and I said no, and my son said no. we thought they'd be camped in a church for 7 days, and we didn't fancy doing that. Then my son said, "Dad, why don't we go and treat it as a holiday?" He says, "Let them go to the church and you and I'll do our own thing." I said, "Fine." So we decided to do that. Now the priest that was bringing us was a Father McGlinchey from Glasgow. Now he spoke Croatian. He could arrange everything himself. He didn't need any third party, didn't need any agency, did it all himself. So we were coming with him. So we decided to come in June 1991. Unfortunately, Father McGlinchey took ill, went into hospital, and he died. So we came out, because it was all arranged, we came out with his secretary Barbara. Nothing, we had nowhere to stay. We were sitting on our suitcases at 1 o'clock in the morning, didn't know where we were going. Nobody spoke English in them days, very little English was in the village. We knocked on doors and we said, "Can you take us in?" No. We wouldn't. Eventually we did get into a hotel and a couple of scattered houses round about. Come the Wednesday, it was Father McGlinchey's funeral. And we said to Barbara, "Right, what's happening?" She said, "I'm going to the funeral." She said, "What about us?" She said, "Tough." That was her word. She said, "Tough." So we had no program, we had no guide, we had nothing. So we just wandered about the village for the next few days on our own. Didn't have any plan whatsoever. And I said to Margaret at the time, I said, "If I ever come back here, I'll know exactly where I'm staying and what room I'm in." I said, "I'm never going to go through that again." So we went back, and don't get me wrong, we saw there was a healing priest here from Chicago. You might have heard of him, Father Peter Mary Ruki. He used to line people up in the fields and go around praying over them, and they all just fell like a pack of cards. Now, I was standing beside a girl called Susan Whitmore from the USA. She was crippled in a wheelchair. Father Ruki come, prayed over her, lifted her up out the wheelchair, put the next person in it, and made her push him. So she pushed him about, and that was it. She was cured. The next morning, I was on Apparition Hill, and who's beside me but Susan? And she said, "What am I going to tell my physician? He said I would never walk again." I said, "Tell me you've been to Medjugorje and you're the subject of a miracle." That was only one that we heard. The amount of healings and things that went on was incredible. One of the best was, in the early days, the church was surrounded by gravel. There was no patio like there is now. There was nothing, just gravel. And we couldn't get in the church for Mass, so Margaret and I were sitting outside with the speakers, and this man kept walking up and down, crunching on the gravel, making a noise. And I said to Margaret, I said, I can't hear the Mass for him. I said, I'm going to have to tell him to sit down. So he came towards me, and he stopped right in front of me, and he said, isn't that wonderful? I said, what? He said, the birds are singing. I said, the birds sing every day in Medjugorje. He says, not for me. He said, I've been stone deaf for 40 years. And he was healed instantly, just at the Mass. Now that kind of thing in them days was commonplace. It happened on a daily basis. Things were happening. So all this happened. We had a lovely week, went back home. The war broke out. So obviously, as we left, the soldiers blocked the roads off. You couldn't go back. The barbed wire went over, and the machine gun posts went up. You know,
that was the first time.
You couldn't go back. We got down to Dubrovnik airport. There was about 5,000 people running about, mad. It was chaos. And a girl came up to me and she said, Mr. Foster, I need your plane to take the Americans home, because to kick the Americans out first, then all the British, because we would not recognise Croatia as an independent state. They knew the war was coming, and they wanted to be an independent state so they could arm themselves against the Serbs. But of course the UK and America was, don't be silly, don't be silly. So because they didn't agree, they kicked the Americans out straight away, and we got out at the weekend. So we were in Dubrovnik airport. They all disappeared. They gave us a luncheon voucher, which was literally a bagel and a cup of tea.
Unbelievable.
That's all we got for our lunch. 5 hours later, interview, please. 5 hours later, they brought me a plane. The airport was deserted. There was just 45 Scottish people from Glasgow, and the flew us out. And then after that, the airport was closed. So, although we'd had a beautiful spiritual week, nothing rang the bell with me. Nothing. All them things we'd seen happen, nothing worked. And we started to do the 2-day fast, or Wednesdays and Fridays on bread. I said to Our Lady, bread and tea, Mother, I don't like water. I'll do bread and tea. So which I did. It was fine. Did that, and then Our Lady asked for a 9-day fast to try and bring the war to an end. Did the 9-day fast, and poof, total conversion. After the 9-day fast,
you had the conversion.
Just total conversion, completely.
What happened?
Just everything changed. All the things you think about, I'd get a bigger car, a better job, or a bigger house, or just all the material things just disappeared. Didn't want nothing to do with it. You know, I just wanted to bring people out here, because the peace that we'd experienced was absolutely wonderful. So
how did you, if I may ask,
yes,
how did your wife, your children react to your conversion? I mean, you must have changed.
Oh, she was over the moon, because I'm a convert from the Church of England. I was a convert in 1980, just the year before Our Lady started appearing here. I became a convert from the Church of England into the Catholic faith. So
another step then.
I wasn't easily impressed, so nothing really impressed me that much. You know, it took a long time to impress me, but it just happened overnight. And I just said to Margaret, I said, we've got to organise another pilgrimage. But we couldn't. So for the next 92 and 93, the war was raging. Nobody would insure you to hire an aircraft, so we couldn't do it. I remember saying to Our Lady, I said, Mother, you've nobody taken pilgrimages from Scotland. I said, because Father McGlinchey's died, and the other people that were doing it was a girl called Moira Dines in AT that's a travel agency. She was doing it, but she fell pregnant, so she gave up a job. So there was nobody from Scotland doing trips to Medjugorje. So I said to Our Lady, I said, Mother, I said, what will we do? And she said, you do it. And I thought, no chance, no, I'm not doing it. I said, I don't know that much about the Catholic faith. I said, I'm not very good at travelling abroad. I've only been abroad once, and that was to Medjugorje. I said, and I can't speak in public. I said I couldn't do it, so no, I'm not doing it. So for 3 years, I dodged Our Lady. I'd do what she was asking me to do, but I went to a prayer meeting one night. It was a charismatic prayer meeting, and a girl I've never seen in my life before, she came over to me and she said, Our Lady wants you to do something for her, and you're not doing it. I said, "Oh, what is it?" She said, "I don't know." She said, "I don't know." She said, "You go and pray about it." So I went and prayed about it, and I was in the prayer I was told to do the pilgrimages. And the words I got was, "I'll help you." I said, "Right, okay, fine." So we invested in a priest. He was a Montfort father, Father Stephen Voot. He agreed to let us use his house, Montfort House, for a meeting place to get people together. We advertised in the local papers. I got 45 people together for the 1994 trip, and we couldn't fly directly into Dubrovnik because that airport had been destroyed by the Serbs. We couldn't go into Zadar, that was a military airport, so we had to land in Pula, which is 10 hours up the coast. So we flew into Pula, stayed overnight, and we had 2 big hotels like this. And the manager said to us, "That one's got a swimming pool, this one hasn't. There's a corridor between the 2, help yourself." He said, "All the keys are there, just help yourself to whatever room you want." And when we came into the airport, all the local dancers were there, all dressed in the Croatian outfits, and all the drinks. And I said, "The president must be coming." He said, "No, this is for you." So we got a welcome like you wouldn't believe. It was incredible. Then we had the 2 hotels. We stayed 2 days in the 2 hotels, and then we drove the 10 hours down into Medjugorje. We had 10 days here. The war was raging. We'd sit outside like this on the patio. You could hear the motors going off, the machine guns in the distance. And I said to our guide, I said, "Davor," I said, "they're getting closer." He said, "No, it's only a wedding." I said, "A wedding with a machine gun?" He said, "It's only a wedding." But we had a lovely 10 days here. Lots and lots of things happened to lots and lots of people. And I was quite happy. I went back to Scotland, and Our Lady allowed me to stop working when I was 45-year-old. I was able to retire and just I did 4 trips. I came out here 4 times a year. I came out, and sometimes I'd bring as many as 160. You know, and it was just wonderful. We had our own house. We had Jozo's house down just behind them houses there. We had our own room with a double bed and a balcony. And we used the same house for about 15 years. You know, and it was incredible. It was incredible. And the amount of people that we brought out and the conversions we've seen are absolutely amazing.
So you came with all these groups. What happened in your groups? Did any miracles happen there? Conversions happen?
Many. One of the most prominent ones was an old chap called James Farrell. He was 76-year-old, and he used to always say to Our Lady, he'd been coming before I did, and he used to say to Our Lady, "Mother, just one more time. I wanted to come just one more time." So he came out, and I was on my own this time. My wife never came. It was October, and he said to me, "I'd love to climb Apparition Hill." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "I'm too unsteady on my feet." I said, "I'll take you up." So took him up to Apparition Hill. It was a slow process, got him to the top. In them days there was no statues, just a cross, a metal cross. So we sat and said our rosary. And I said, "Look, Jimmy," I said, I'll take you down the quick way that leads to the blue cross." I said, "Only it's very steep." I said, "So I'll walk in front of you, and if you fall on top of me." So we started going down, and he fell right into the bushes. And I picked him up and I said, "Jimmy, are you okay?" And he went, "I'm fine." And then I seen the blood dripping, and a thorn had slit right through the top of his finger, and it was bleeding profusely. So I took my handkerchief out, wrapped it around it, and I said, "Right, when we get to the bottom, I'll take you to the Maltesers and get that stitched." So we came down. He said, "But we need to finish the rosary." So we went to the Blue Cross, finished our rosary, and I said, "Jimmy, I'll need to change that." It was soaking wet. Took another tissue out my pocket, took the handkerchief off. There wasn't a mark. There wasn't a mark on his finger. Nothing. And believe it or not, such a thing like that, I forgot about. And a couple of, maybe a year, 18 months later, Jimmy and I were out here, just sitting with a group like we did tonight, and somebody said, "Jimmy, have you had any experiences?" He said, "Oh yes," and he told them the story of the finger. And I said, "Jimmy, I forgot all about that. Now, how could I've seen so much happen here, I forgot about such an important thing that happened in my group. You know that the things that happened are just incredible. It's just an incredible place. But we've got a couple in the group that came with us this time that very sceptical. Oh, I'm Lourdes. I'm not keen on this place. I'm a Lourdes person. I said, look, we're all Our Lady's people. I said, and she brings nice people together. They're all high as kites now. They've all had a wonderful week, and every single one of them have loved it. I came out with a group in 1995. I had a chap that was drug dependent. I had a chap that was alcohol dependent. I had a psychiatrist. I had a doctor from Bearsden in Glasgow. And I said, Mother, what are you doing? I said, these people will never mix. And see, at the end of the week, they're just like one big family. And that's the same here. I say to them on the bus, I say, you're getting on this bus now to go to Medjugorje with strangers. I said, we'll come back as a family. And that's happened every 76 trip I've done.
The work of Our Lady, no?
Yeah, absolutely. She brings people together all the time, and there's always somebody in the group that needs help from other people. This is why it's important to come with a group. I've spoken to people that said, I went on my own, but I didn't get nothing. I said, well, you won't get nothing on your own, because things happen and people won't talk about it. But if you're in a group, everybody talks about it. You can talk to people, I mean, it's just an amazing place, and it's just a place that I've been privileged to come all these years, and Our Lady's always. I've been 76 times, and I think I've paid once. Our Lady's brought me every other time. I've been to Walsingham, which is a shrine in England. I've been there 13 times, never paid. I've been to Knock in Ireland. The fare was paid twice. When you work for Our Lady, she looks after you. She looks after you, Tom. There's no doubt about it. She looks after you. And all the little details as well. Like, we were sitting here yesterday. Now, the forecast for this was torrential rain all day yesterday and all day today. I don't know if you looked at the forecast. We sat here and said our rosary. We said, Mother, we're going to try and dry that up so that we can get all our last minute shopping done. Look at the weather we've got. It's supposed to have been pouring down. It's so important, to believe in the power of prayer, because it works. I was here with a canon from Glasgow. He'd been a priest for 50 years, a lovely guy called Canon Alphonsus Woods. And he came as our spiritual director. And on the way home, we're on the aeroplane. He was in the middle, I was sitting to the right, and my pal Joe was sitting to the left. And he kept rubbing his legs. And I said, what's wrong, Father? He said, the pain in my legs is incredible. I said, would you like us to say a little prayer with you while we're near head office? And he said, by all means. Joe and I prayed with him, and the pain left instantly. Now, that was a canon. He should have been praying with us, but his faith was, he went, go ahead. We prayed with him. The pain went. Power of prayer. The power of prayer. Fantastic.
I love to know, you told me you are originally from the Church of England.
Yes.
How was your conversion? How did that happen to come to Medjugorje from the Church of England? That's a long way.
That is a story. That's another miraculous story.
Yeah.
My son, he's 44 now. He fell ill when he was 18 months old in Scotland. Now, he was sleeping all the time, and we phoned the doctor and we said, we wanted to speak to the doctor, but there was a virus going around, so the doctor was out on call. So we spoke to his wife, and she said, what is his symptoms? We said, he's tired, he's floppy, and he's sleeping all the time. She said, right. She said, there's a virus going around, he should be all right in 24 hours. So foolishly, we took her word for it. We went for a night out in our local golf club, came back, and he still hadn't woke up. And my wife said, I don't like this. She said, I'm going to phone the hospital. She phoned the hospital, they sent an ambulance out, took him back in, and we found out he had meningitis with a blood poisoning. That's meningococcal septicemia. And he was in a coma. He wasn't sleeping, he was in a coma. So the doctor came out, the doctor whisked him away, gave him a lumbar puncture, came back, and he said, your son is very, very sick. He says, we have two options. He says, one, I can treat him. He says, but I think it's too late. He said, the other option is, he says, I can overdose him. He said, but the other thing is there, he said, it might kill him. He said, so you have to decide. So we looked at each other and said, right, if it's too late for ordinary medication, overdose him. So they overdosed him to give him the medicine. 24 hours later, he was wide awake. And the first words he said was, Mum, Dad, Julie, Janet. That was me, my wife, and my 2 daughters. Now, he was letting us know that he wasn't brain damaged, because anyone that has septicemia ends up either losing limbs or brain damage. He was fine. So he was in the hospital for 10 days. Margaret stayed with him in the hospital. He had 9 injections a day for 10 days, so he had 90 injections. His arms and legs were all swollen with the injections. He screamed when the nurses come anywhere near him. We had to hold him down till he got the injections. After 10 days, the doctor came and he said, there's nothing more I can do for him. He said, take him home. So he was like a rubber man. He was floppy. We took him home. He recovered in a couple of days. The 2 nurses that nursed him were both Catholics. And they said they'd never seen anything like it in their life. From being in a coma, he was clinically dead, actually clinically dead. And from there to 10 days later, leaving the hospital. I couldn't believe it. So I said to Our Lady, I said, I prayed about, what made my conversion was when the doctor took him for the lumbar puncture, I found myself in the ward myself. My wife went to phone her sisters to say that there wasn't much hope. So I ended up in the ward on my own. So all I could do, I said, all I can do here is say a prayer. So I said a prayer, and I heard a female voice say 5 words, your son will be all right. And I thought, now, what do I do? If I say that to my wife and he doesn't recover, it could ruin our relationship. I said, so I'm stuck with a dilemma. So I said, right, I did hear a voice. It was a female voice, and she did say, your son will be all right. So I told Margaret, and that gave her a lift. She believed in it, and it turned out to be true. And I said, in return, I'll become a Catholic, but I didn't. I didn't keep my word. Didn't keep my word. That was 1980, and it was 1980, and it was about 9 months after that I kept my promise. But and the only reason that happened was my wife was staying in the hospital. I was going to church with the 2 girls, taking them to make sure they got to communion, and the parish priest, who was Irish, he come up to me and he said, I notice you come to Mass every Sunday. He said, but you don't come to communion. I said, I'm not of your faith, Father. I said, I'm Church of England. He said, well, what do you want to do something about it? I said, yes. So he said, right, come on Monday night, he said, and I'll talk to you about it. So on the Monday night, I went to the church, and he gave me like a test, asking me about the Catholic faith. Well, I'd been going to church for quite a few years with my wife. And he said to me, 6 weeks and I'll have you a Catholic. And he did it in 6 weeks. And that was my conversion, because Our Lady spoke to me. And she spoke to me ever since. And I tell people, we went on the road like the disciples. We went on the road for 4 years. We covered from Scotland right down to near London, talking about Medjugorje. And we changed our programme to Our Lady speaks to those who listen. And the amount of people that came to us after the talk and said, I know exactly what you're saying. I've heard them voices before. She said, but I was too frightened to get up in front of everybody and talk to you about it. But the amount of people that came to us and spoke to us, and we do it on a daily basis. I say, if you want something from Our Lady, a lot of Catholics make the wrong impression to think Our Lady can read your mind. Our Lady was human like you and I. She's raised to divine status now with her son, but she can't read your mind. And I know from experience, because I was going through a difficult time in the faith. I thought I was taking off more than I could really handle. And Our Lady says, tell me what troubles you and I'll help you through it. I said, I've got 3 problems, Mother. I said, I had my sister-in-law staying with me with a young baby. I said, I don't want any of my 2 girls to get pregnant. I said, because I couldn't cope with the stress of another baby. I said, I'm frightened of heights, which really worried me. I said, and I can't speak in public. And she cured me of all of it.
Keep on going, yeah?
But yeah,
Within a few weeks?
Within a few weeks, I could go up a ladder onto the roof, no problem. No shakes, no, I wasn't worried about anything. And public speaking, I went all over the country. And it didn't matter. I went to Luton, and I spoke in a hall, and there must have been a couple of hundred people in it. And I said, I don't care whether it's 20 or 200, 2,000, it doesn't make any difference. I can speak now, no problem.
Unbelievable.
You know, and I was terrified. Honestly, I was absolutely terrified of public speaking. Don't know why, because it's just everyday talk, but I think people are frightened of criticism and stuff, you know, but no, it's no problem.
This is unbelievable.
She's cured me from all my, and I mean, some of the prayers are instant, you know. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, Father Chima's finding that now. The priest that's with us, he 7 hours from us leaving Glasgow, he was in Liverpool, which is a couple of 100 miles away in England. And I'd written him off. I said, I told the hotel, I said, he's not coming. But he got here, and he had all his visas, and he wanted to celebrate Mass. I said, you can't even go on the altar. I said, you need to celebrate from your bishop to tell you that you're genuine. I said, because we've had people here on the altar that weren't priests. I said, and that's why they're so particular. He said, look, it's on my phone. Now he came, we came on Sunday, and on Wednesday he was a main celebrant. And I mean, usually you've got to book it months and months in advance. I spoke to a priest today from England, and he said, I've been trying for years to get on the altar. He said, it's all booked up. Yet Father Chima came, and within 3 days on the altar, main celebrant. Miracles. Everyday miracles.
You pray the rosary day?
Every day.
Why?
We sat in there. My wife can do it in Croatian. And the cleaners were all looking because could hear us saying it in their own language,
The
you know.
Scottish Croatian?
Yeah, they loved it. Yeah, every day in life.
Why do you pray that?
Because it's a prayer that Our Lady asked for. You know, this is an ancient prayer that goes back, and the reason is it's so repetitive because people in the early days couldn't read or write, so there was no written word. So beads, you know, so they can count on the beads. That's why they used it, the rosary, and it's a very, very powerful prayer. And people find it repetitive, and I know, I watch people during the rosary. A chap came today that was in our group. Margaret and I were sitting over there on the sofa saying the rosary, and he sat, he said, can I just sit and listen? I said, yeah. The next minute I looked, it was like ecstasy. He'd gone. The power of the prayer is incredible. And that's why, I mean, we're taking back between us. We have a girl that makes rosary beads for us, and I've got about 55 pairs of rosary beads to take back. All the girls have got bags of rosary beads. We take them back. We don't charge. We give them away, and get people praying. It's a fantastic prayer, and it's easy. It's easy said. You know, it's not a prayer that people get bored with it. You know, and it's like a conversation with your mother. You know, you're talking. You know, and if you rattle through it, it means nothing. I mean, no disrespect, but Irish people do rattle through it. You know, and it's supposed to be said. You know, a heartfelt prayer from the heart, and it works. It's genuine, and we do it because Our Lady asked for it. You know, she asked for the 5 stones. The rosary's in amongst them, and it's an easy prayer that anybody could say. So you know, that's the reason we do it. We do it on a daily basis.
Unbelievable.
You know,
and for you, like coming from the Church of England, what is the beauty about the Catholic faith for you?
It brings, look, what used to fascinate me, all we knew about the Holy Family, you saw them on a Christmas card. Mary, Joseph and Jesus. That's the only time we saw them together. We didn't know nothing about them. And my wife used to, in the early days, she'd say, oh, that's St. Joseph, he's a patron saint of workers. I said, how do you know that? You know, and she said, it's our faith. And I was fascinated. You know, I was fascinated by it. There's just so much that we didn't know. You know, all these faiths in England, you've got Baptists, you've got the There's so many different ones.
Methodists
Especially. Now, it's all Catholic faith, but they take out what they don't want. The confession, no, I don't want that. Daily prayer, daily Eucharist, no, we don't need that. Once a month's fine. You know, they've thrown out what they don't want. All of them say the creed. You know, I spoke to someone the other day and they said, I heard a Protestant service and they say the creed. I said, yeah, because what other prayers have they got? All the prayers are Catholic based, you know, so that they say it. I said that all the faith, they've just taken out what they don't want, got rid of it. They've moulded it to suit themselves, you know, and I was just interested to get back to the basics.
The real thing.
Yeah, it's back to the real prayer. And I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, I wasn't always enthusiastic about it, and I used to go get bored in Mass like everybody else, you know, counting the tiles on the roof and everything else, and saying, I hope he's not that long with his sermon. But then one day it just all clicked. Now, it's clicked so much that during the lockdown, Margaret and I used to join in 12 Masses a day. 12 Masses a day for 2 years. We did it.
That's why you shine so much.
We had them all over the world. We got them from Manila. The Masses in the Philippines are fabulous. We used to tune into them. Then we'd tune into one maybe in Glasgow. Then we'd go to the States and tune into some of them. Fantastic. You know, it was brilliant. People say, you know, you must be nuts, but it's because we enjoy it. And that's a gift. That's a gift that God gives you. If the faith is strong enough, nothing's boring. And nothing's too long, you know. I could sit through Masses. You know, when I go to Walsingham, which is a shrine in England, I go through 5 Masses a day. You know, and I enjoy every minute of it. I could sit there all day. It's beautiful. And when people used to say that to me here, in 1994 we had a girl that used to go into that St James's Church with a flask of tea or a flask of juice and a sandwich and an apple and sit through every single Mass. Croatian, German, Italian, English, and she loved it. And she got it from her mother because her mother did the same thing. And she used to say to her mother, you go in the church, Mum, I'm not going in. But her mother's prayers worked and she went. You know, I'll tell you another brilliant story about when we came here. There was a taxi driver called Joseph, leather jacket, greasy, spiked hair. He got in the car and he played rock music. Bat Out of Hell from Meatloaf, really loud. And I said, Joseph. And he used to say, English music good. And I went, Now his dad used to go to 7 o'clock Mass, Croatian Mass every day and pray for him. I met him a couple of years later and I didn't notice him because he was standing with a suit on. And I said, Joseph? And he went, yes. I said, taxi. I got a taxi with him. All Medjugorje hymns. All Medjugorje hymns. Now his dad was praying for him every day and it converted him totally.
Totally, I can confirm it. I met him in the taxi.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Can I ask you, for you, like maybe there are people listening who don't know God. What is God for you? God the Father. We talk about Jesus, we talk about Mary. God the Father.
God the Father is the man that gives you your life plan, right? People say, why can't you stop this? Why can't you do that? Say, look, when you're born, you're given a life plan. Now this is when you're born, when you die. Now what happens in between mainly is up to yourself. But there's certain things that can be averted. You can pray. If you have an illness, you can maybe pray and it'll go. But there's certain things that you can't. Sometimes people pray and they say nothing happened. You can't interfere with God's plan. You know, He's got a life plan for each of us and we have to accept that. And this is what a lot of people don't accept. He's got a life plan for each and every one of us. And along that life plan, things will happen. You'll get into trouble, you maybe fall ill. And if it's God's will, you'll recover, you'll get better. But a lot of the times, the people don't. They die. And people get upset about it. But that's God's plan. He takes you from this life into the next. He's got something else up there for you. You know, and it's just, He's the man. He's the man in charge. You know, and his mum, our Lady and Jesus are intermediaries. We go through them. The reason a lot of people go through the mother, and Father Sweat used to say it here, you go and you ask your dad for something and he goes, no. You ask him again, no. So you go to your mother and she's a bit more sympathetic. She'll do things for you. And it's the same with Our Lady. You know, if people just remember that she's not divine, she can't read your mind. You've got to tell Our Lady what you want in life, and she'll listen. She'll listen to you, because she's there. Because she said to me in one of my prayer meetings, she said, when you pray the rosary, I'm there beside you. She said, now if you go into your house and you shout your mother, what happens? Your mother comes to you. You start praying the rosary, you're calling Our Lady. She comes to you. She comes to you. In Whitby, which is where I come from, in Yorkshire, it's a seaside village. And we went on holiday with two friends who are not Catholic, so we couldn't pray the rosary in the car. You know, we couldn't do our normal prayers. We had to keep them to ourselves. So we went in the shop this day, and there were shopaholics. They were looking around the shop, and somebody, my wife said, they've got Aran jump now. I don't know if you've heard of Aran jumpers. They're made in Scotland, very thick, very warm, but very expensive. And my wife said, look at these Aran jumpers. And I said, I would love one like that. And I picked it up and I looked at it, and it had a lovely pattern on the front. I said, but I can't afford it. It was £45. I said, I can't afford that. Now Margaret and I were praying our rosary, walking around this shop. This is what we do. We're walking around the shop praying our rosary, keeping away from our friends so they didn't hear us. And we're walking around praying our rosary, and I said to Margaret, I would love one of them. I said, but I can't afford it. Now nobody knew, apart from Margaret, myself and Our Lady, that I'd like that jumper, that Aran jumper. We got home after our holiday, and I was getting ready to come to Medjugorje, and a lady from Glasgow phoned me, and she said, are you coming out next week? I said, of course. She said, are you bringing a jumper? I said, yes. She said, well, don't, I've got one for you. And she said, and I've got one for the priest as well. And I said, oh, fine, great. So I didn't bring a jumper. And when we got here, she worked in a factory that makes the jumpers. When we got here and she gave me the jumper, it was the exact same jumper as I'd said to my wife, I would like one of them. Our Lady knew, and she got in contact with the girl, and the girl gave me one for nothing.
What a story.
Fantastic. But that's what happens. It's just a thing. You've got to have faith. You've got to believe in what you're talking about. And sometimes you'll get people that will try and knock you down, but that's their problem. You know, we know that we're on the right track. We've had too much happen to let anybody disturb us. You know, everything happens for a reason. And I mean, my wife's been ill for 3 years, but we shouldn't have been here. I cancelled the trip for myself and my wife, and head office wouldn't take our name off the list. No. I mean, normally they'd have been glad to take our names off to give 2 people the seats, but they didn't. And here we are.
And I meet you at the end of the trip, by coincidence.
We got here, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Your daughter.
Because we've not been out, because we can't go far, because Margaret can't walk, so we've not been very often down the village, you know. But things are amazing. So we'll see what happens next year. You know, we never say never, but it's a place that people must come for themselves, Tom. They must come and see for themselves. That's what Father Slavko always said, and he made a video the same. He went, come and see. And that's what you have to do. You have to come for yourself. You can't go back and tell other people to come, because they'll just don't give me that. Even the priest, the minute you say to your parish priest, Father, you must go to Medjugorje, the barriers will go up, and he doesn't want to know. You've got to let them make their own mind up. Took my parish priest 8 years to get him to come. And he came. I said, Father, just go on your own, make a retreat and see what you think. And he came, and he liked it that much. He brought a group the following year. That was 8 years. I didn't nag him. I just kept giving him little bits of information, little books that we got. We used to get books printed, leaflets, and just kept handing them to him, and he came. And that's what you got to do. You got to break down people's resistance. Our Lady's good at helping you. She's really good. But it's been fantastic. 31 years I've been coming, and it's every trip's different. The groups are different, but the graces are the same. You know, people come out and say, Medjugorje's changed. I said, but the graces are the same. Our Lady doesn't change. The graces don't change. And if you want the graces, I can't get them for you. If you want the graces, come and get them yourself.
How do you get the graces? What would you tell the people? How do they get
just to come and follow the program. You know, if you're not in it, you can't win it. You've got to come, follow the program, do what Our Lady asks, do the hills. I mean, I climbed that hill. I've not done that hill for must be 6-7 years, and I flew up it. I flew up it the other day, no problem. I wasn't even out of breath, no sweat, right to the top and back down, no problem. Do that, go to the Mass, obviously, which is the main thing, and there's plenty of talks, but as long as the main thing is the Mass and praying your rosary. We always get our group to pray a rosary together, you know. We do it on the coach so they can't escape, you know. They're a captive audience, and that's what we do. We do it on the coach. But no, they're all coming together. Brilliant, lovely. They're a lovely group.
Wow.
You know, but that's the way to get the grace. Just follow the you've got a set program for every group that comes. If you've got a guide like we've got Slavica, you've got a set program. Just follow the program. You don't need to be too holy. Just go and do what's asked of you, and things will change. Things will change, Tom.
Wow.
There's nowhere like it in the world. For the difference is between, I mean, people say, oh, we go to Luz, we go to Garabandal. I said, that's fine, but they're all shrines of the past. That doesn't mean that they're any less important. It does mean that the world never listened to them. If the world had listened to Garabandal, Medjugorje wouldn't have been necessary. Our Lady appeared in Garabandal in Spain in the 60s, and the church rejected it. If they hadn't, this place wouldn't have been necessary. We'd have all been converted away back in the 60s. But the world turned its back on Garabandal, and so Our Lady waited 20 years and then started again out here. Instead of saying, in the beginning she only appeared to, like in Rwanda, Kiebo and all these other places, she appeared to one person. Garabandal, she did 3, and she must have thought, I'm not going to get caught out again, I'll do 6, I'll double up my efforts. So she appeared to 6 people, you know, and she's doubling up her efforts all the time to try and make people listen. And that's all it is. It's just, she just wants people to come back to the church, and doing that will change your whole lifestyle. It's amazing.
Yes,
you know?
changed mine.
Yeah, it changes your life, you know, and it's for the better, because you meet lots of lovely people. I mean, we've got friends now all over the world, and we could go all over the world, but I mean, obviously we're getting a bit too old to travel like that, but we still keep in touch with the ones we came with 30 years ago. We still keep in touch with people, and I met some of them just Tuesday. I met them in one of the cafes. They were with me in 1994. You know, we just still all keep in touch. It's just a wonderful network. Yeah, that's the word, a network, and it keeps us all together, keeps us all in touch with each other, and we can help each other through phone calls, through talk. It's just amazing. And
what do you think the future will hold for Medjugorje, maybe even the world?
Well, Our Lady said that the sign will happen here. She's also said it would happen in Garabandal, but whether or not it does, it definitely will be here. It'll definitely be here, you know. And I don't worry too much about signs and wonders anymore. I mean, in the early days, yes, you watched the sun bouncing about, spinning. The moon used to dance. In the 70s, the moon used to bounce up and down like a yo-yo. It was incredible. Yeah, it was absolutely. The signs and wonders then were brilliant, but I've had plenty of that now. I don't need to be convinced anymore. So now I enjoy watching other people being converted, you know. And I've got plenty of experience. If they see something they're not sure of, I say, right, tell me about it. Like we had a couple here who came for the second time and everything went wrong. They wanted to go home. And I said, listen, that happens. I said, I've been with groups, and as soon as I got to the airport, I said, I wish I hadn't come, because people were moaning, and you know, you always get moaners. But at the end of the week, we're all big one family again, you know. But you get that. So I sat down with them for about 2 hours and explained how you can get that way where everything goes wrong. I said, but you've just got to overcome it. And at the end of the week, they were fine.
And what would you tell people now? You see the uncertain times all around us. How can they get through all this maybe difficult period?
The only way we're going to get through this, Tom, is turning back to our faith, because nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows. There's plenty of people, there's plenty of doom and gloom merchants that say, 3 days of darkness is coming and this is going to happen. Nobody knows, and I don't believe any of it. The way I look at it is this: we've come here on Our Lady's invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in Our Lady's army. Now, if there's trouble, who's going to know what's happening first? The army. We're in Our Lady's army. We're in the front line. So no matter what people tell me, I say, look, if something drastic's going to happen, Our Lady's going to let us know. I've been in contact with her for so many years now.
Mm-hmm.
I say, I just rely on her totally and completely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's if it's the future, if it was something dreadful, she would let us know, and the visionaries would never have had children.
Mm-hmm.
They would never have had children if the future was so bad. So it's not that bad. So whatever's coming, it can be overcome by prayer. Our Lady's already said that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things have been averted through the power of prayer.
Yeah.
And I just leave myself in Our Lady's hands. I say, if something dreadful is going to happen, the first people to know is us in Our Lady's army.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us that have been here, no matter whether they came willingly or whether they came grudgingly, somebody brought them, they'll all get graces that they'll go home with, and believe it or not, they'll be the first to know if anything happens. And that's the way I look at it. I don't care what happens in the world, whatever happens. Our Lady's warned me many a time. She warned me when my best friend died,
Mm-hmm.
and she warned me when my brother-in-law died.
Mm-hmm.
I was praying, he died, I think 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and I was praying for him in my rosary, as I do for people that are ill. He had cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was praying for him, and I said, Mother, I said, if it's God's will, I would like Stevie to recover. And she said, Stevie's time on earth is finished, and his family are waiting for him. That was it. That's all she told me. And a
if
couple
people would like to know, how to be in contact like you with Our Lady, how do they get in contact?
It's focus and believing. The more you talk to Our Lady, she won't ignore you. You'll get what they call interlocution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if you've heard of some of the visionaries
Mm-hmm.
that never went back on the first day
Mm-hmm.
because the mothers wouldn't let them,
Mm-hmm.
but they still believed, so
Mhm.
they got like yelling at, they get interlocution. Now, I remember saying to my wife in church, interlocution, I says, how can you hear something here when your ears are here?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife said, when it happens, you'll know. And I was in church one day, and I was praying, and I heard the inner voice. I went, I know exactly now what the difference now. So now you don't need to doubt yourself and say, did I hear that? Because you don't hear it here, you hear it in here. And it's a strange thing, but it works. And Our Lady, all you have to do is keep praying the rosary. And Our Lady said a wonderful thing to me years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I did a talk in Dundee, which is in the north of Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a wee bit dubious because there was 5 priests and a Monsignor,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a St. Vincent de Paul annual dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a guest speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and I was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in to get changed. I used to go in and lay out all my bits and pieces. I went into the toilet to get changed, and as usual, the humanness come over him, and I went, what am I doing here? I should be at home watching football. I shouldn't be here. And I'm out of my depth. And I prayed about it. I said, Mother, I said, just let this go well. I said, what am I going to say to these priests and to a bishop that know far more than I do? And the words that came back were incredible. She said, the bishop prays to me. She said, but you talk to me. And that was the difference. I talk to her as if I'm talking to you. Things that happen, I go, Mother, what do you think of that? I just talk to her as if it's normal. And a lot of the time, obviously, I don't need a reply, but when I do, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a lot of people. Nori, as he told you, came into my room and he said, this guy talks to statues and talks to pictures. But because that's the only way. When I get non-Catholics saying it, they say, but you worship statues. I said, we don't worship statues. I said, do you carry a picture of your mother in your wallet? Oh, yes. I said, well, this is the same thing. It's a figure of Our Lady. I said, that's the same thing. I said, we're not worshipping Our Lady. I said, we ask Our Lady to intercede to God the Father.
And what would you tell people who are fearful about confession?
Well, it was a thing that I wasn't keen of because I was a lad. I ended up in approved schools, nearly ended up in Borstal because I was brought up with just one single parent. I had no mother. So we were a little bit naughty, if you like. We got into a lot of trouble with the police and such like. So when the priest said to me about my first confession, I thought, oh my God, I'll be in there for a week if I tell him all the things I've done. And he said, don't worry, he says, I'll help you through it. And I sat outside and I prayed about it, and I thought, well, all I can do is just open my heart to him, tell him the things that are really troubling me, and I'll say, and any other things that I may have forgotten. And I went to my first confession, and it was brilliant. But it worried me because I thought, I've got to go in there and tell this man about my past, so he's going to know what kind of guy I am. But it's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Just go in with an open heart. The priest is there. He's not there to judge you. He's there to absolve you. So that's what to do. Just go in and just tell him. It doesn't matter. Most of the times he's heard it all before. And our priest often say, give me something decent to listen to. He said, don't come away with it. Oh, I missed Mass and I did it. He said, I want something juicy. He said, give me something that I can really absolve you from. And they do, that's it. It was a very daunting thing to go to my first confession, but I did it. And the priest was wonderful. He was wonderful. They shouldn't worry about anything. Just go. He's not there to judge you. He's there to absolve you, and that's it. And he can't pass on anything that you've told him to anybody. It's a great institution. It really is. And I'm lucky. Most of the priests in my diocese, I know all of them personally. The bishops I've known personally. The bishop's brother was my spiritual director here for 12 years. So I've been in the company of bishops and priests, and you can't do that without getting some feedback off them. It's amazing. When I came here, I went down to that church. I had to go and see one of my priests. I was doing the readings, and I went down into the sacristy, and I thought I was a priest to give me an alb. And I said, oh, I'm not that holy. Not yet.
And how do you talk about priest and marriage life, and how do you tell young people, how do they discern their vocation?
It's very difficult with youngsters. I mean, my son doesn't go to Mass, and he's been here many times. But I leave him in Our Lady's hands. I say, look, Mother, you know the future more than I do. And I just pray for him, that's all, because it's a daunting thing for youngsters as well. It's boring, but it's not boring. I'd never been abroad until I came on pilgrimage, and now I've been 76 times to Medjugorje. I've been 14 times to Walsingham, the shrine in England. I've been to Knock twice. I've been to Lourdes twice. I've been all over.
It's an adventure with Christ.
Oh, and I've been to Amsterdam with Our Lady of All Nations. Our Lady takes you all over. Before that I never went anywhere. It's just, the faith is amazing. People think it's boring. It's fabulous. It opens up a whole new world to you, a whole lot of new friends and a lot of new experiences. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
So the kids, my grandson, he stopped going for a little while. And I said to my daughter Julie, I said, look, don't worry, I'm going to pray for him every single day. And I did, and now he won't miss Mass. He's passed his test, and he even takes his sister to Mass in the car. And he won't miss Mass. He will not. You'd even walk it, he won't miss Mass. The power of prayer. He's a lovely boy. Lovely boy. And my granddaughters are the same. They're in that age now where the world's pulling them this way, and they're getting further and further away from the church, but we'll get them back.
By the power of prayer.
Power of prayer, we'll get them back.
This is very important for parents.
Absolutely. Prayer doesn't need to be long and drawn out. I mean, the Lord says, don't go to your room and pray, but don't be like the hypocrites and go these big long prayers. Just say a simple prayer. I do sometimes. I just say a simple prayer to say, Mother, be with us this day, or Mother, help me through this, or whatever. And she does.
Heartfelt, as Our Lady says.
It happens. That's it. She's. Our Lady always said with the people in the early days, the people that came here, I mean, they came here, she said, people come to visit me, they go to Mass, they go to confession, they follow the program, they do the fasting, they go home, and within a couple of weeks, it's all forgotten. They fall back into the ways of the world. And that was her biggest gripe when, years ago, that people come here and just didn't hold on to what they'd received here. And it is hard. It is hard going back. You're like the disciples. I mean, people shun you and keep you're nuts. I was in a darts team. I played darts and I played pool. I came here, went back, never said nothing to any of, because I knew I don't even know if there was any Catholics in the team, so I never spoke. And I found out that if they were telling rude jokes and I walked in, they would stop. And that's just strange. And then if they were swearing, they go, sorry. And I said, I've not said nothing. Why are they doing this? But they see something's changed in you, and that's the way they were. Then they started calling me Mr. Medjugorje. Where did you go? Where was that place you went? I went, Medjugorje. Mr. Medjugorje. And that's what they started calling me. But they've seen a change in me, And some of them that were non-Catholics said, what's that place like? I said, it's like Lourdes. I said, but it's more updated. I'll say, ladies over there now. And they were all interested. I even went to get my car MOT. Now into the garage, just come back from here, full of the Spirit, I had the rosary beads and the little books on how to pray the rosary. I said, how many Catholics in here? They said 2. I said, where are they? That mechanic over there and the girl in the office. So I went up to him and I went, here, get back to the rosary. I went into the office and I said, here, Angela, get back to the rosary. Give him the rosary beads and give him the little booklet. I went back in a couple of weeks later for something else. She came up to me and she went, thank you.
I tell you why, because you're really Mr. Medjugorje. You are fulfilling what Our Lady wants.
Yeah, they seen something and they embraced it. They took the beads and they took the booklet on how to pray the rosary.
Wow.
It's brilliant. It's just, you just got to be bold. You've got to be brave and got to be bold and just do what Our Lady asks, and she won't leave you. She won't leave your side. She'll be with you constantly. It's amazing.
Thank you for this beautiful interview.
No problem, Tom. It's a pleasure.